Thank you so much, Sayuda. Indeed, beautiful. So we're going to get in position here. And
note this.
You didn't sabotage this thing.
I didn't sabotage it. No, so again, if you have questions, go ahead and write them down. We've got some questions in here. We'll start. But the ushers have pens, as you see. And you, if you have a question and it's done, pass it to the ushers, and then I'm going to look at them while he's talking, and I'll keep replenishing the box. So your question will get answered, hopefully.
And let me tell you this. Whatever we don't come to, it's my belief that there are generalized themes that come up within masses of people. And so as we attend to the questions that we can get to in this 1 hour, what we will do is we will save them, and I thought it would be great actually to continue to answer them in video format, and we could put them either in the newsletter or on the Facebook page and just keep the dialogue going. And I think that's a really good thing. Let me also tell you too that the science of mind philosophy, or any great spiritual high vibrational philosophy, doesn't tell you what to think. It teaches you how to think. And in the teaching of how to think, then you determine what is appropriate and what is resonant for you. Always be mindful of the fact that whatever it is that you hear is being filtered through my opinion or someone else's opinion or a teacher's opinion. And what is beautifully empowering for you is that as you navigate your way down your own spiritual path, to find the things that resonate for you. And if they do, not only will you know that, but you can hold on to those. And then anything that doesn't work for you, you get to do what with it? Discard it. And it's neither a right nor wrong. It's what is individually appropriate for you and your particular path. So always keep that in mind, particularly when we have the temptation to fall into comparison, where we look at what someone else is doing and then we think we need to carbon copy them. Your life is your life. It's your individual life. You are here to live to the best of your ability that life in your own particular brand and in your own particular social stratus and in your own particular influence, and to do the best that you can do consciously. That's learning how to think. And so there's lots of rustling going on here.
Just stirring it up.
All right, okay.
Are you ready?
Yes, he is.
Yes,
Stirring it up. Yeah. All right.
It's what I do best, Stacey.
Here we go.
Okay, off we go. First question. Please, in layman terms, in one sentence, what is science of mind?
Science of mind is ancient wisdom. The differentiation between ancient wisdom and new thought is there's nothing new about new thought. It's ancient wisdom. New thought means that you as the individual have a paradigm shift, and you understand that you have the capability of changing your thought. So in one sentence, really the catchphrase is, when you change your thinking, you change your life.
So that's your one sentence.
That's it.
All right. Very good. Oh, I got to read handwriting. Why were we made to have a human experience with all of its challenges instead of just living as enlightened beings?
I believe that we straddle our earthly humanity and our divinity, and that both of those expressions are vital in terms of one's soul growth. So think about this. If you didn't have the human experience, how would you then be able to experience what growth truly is? If everything just was, then there would be no spiraling up, there would be no evolution, there would just be this kind of... And what's beautiful is that growth then precipitates what? It precipitates knowledge, compassion. It affords us the opportunity of free will to come to the understanding that who we are in physical form is an expression of God. And as we remember that, the membering of mind comes back to that, it takes us on a journey of fulfillment. I love the example this way. If if you had the ability to know the entire movie even before you saw the movie, why would you go to the movie? The joy of the movie is that you sit in the beginning of the movie and you have no idea what's going to happen if you haven't read the reviews. And so it takes you on an emotional, spiritual, a physical adrenaline ride, and that's the whole point. If you knew everything from that point, then there would be no joy in the journey.
If God is all there is, what is hate, war, and fear?
One of the ways to explain that is that there is only light, and so darkness is simply the absence of light. Just because our particular Earth rotates away from the sun, half of it, doesn't mean that the sun has disappeared. It means that the proximity or the relationship to that thing has shifted. The same with hate or anything that is unlike God. It doesn't mean that God isn't there. It means that the free will of the individual has turned away from the knowledge or become ignorant of the fact that God is the one sustaining energy. And again, that's the beauty of free will. It's not done for us. We are given the opportunity in this lifetime to be able to see past those particular things to know what divine order is. Kind of what Janet intimated in the treatment this morning. Just because you don't see divine order doesn't mean that divine order isn't there. So one of the big teaching tools that I'm always offering is even in the apparent absence of. So even in the apparent absence of light, there is light. So even in the apparent absence of this thing, this energy, this presence that we call God, God is still there. Then what does that afford you and I to do? In our enthusiasm and in our sincerity to go upon this quest to reveal that or to recognize that which is. Recognition to us is incredible because it is actually the first step of our affirmative prayer. Before we even do a prayer affirmatively, we have to recognize one thing, and that is the infallible presence of this life, this energy, this source, this intelligence, which we call God. And so by establishing that, by recognizing that, then we begin to train ourselves to see the world differently. And what the world needs is more people trained to see things differently beyond effect. A beautiful colleague, a CSL minister, posted on our listserv this week. She says, I've been training myself in our theme, the theme of a world that works for everyone. Meaning that when I read stuff, I bring that theme to the forefront of what it is that I'm reading. And when that becomes my predominant magnetized attention, all of a sudden statistics about how education is becoming more available to people worldwide begin to pop up. I start to see where impoverished sections of the world now have resources that they didn't have before. I start to see how things that were strife-ridden have become poised and beautiful and intertwined. And these are things that are actually happening. But I've had to train my eye, train my mind to see that world working for everyone in order for that information to be available to me. I can also train my mind how? To focus on division. And when I train my mind to focus on division, then all that I will see is what? Division. Same thing. It doesn't mean that success and improvement isn't happening. But if I don't have that on my radar mentally, then all that I will magnetize to myself is what I have on my mental radar. And so, in perpetuity, we are always right. You are always right by consciousness. So whatever your consciousness is, whatever your mental atmosphere is at this moment, it doesn't say stagnant, it continuously changes as you change. But whatever your mental atmosphere is right now at this moment is what you are bringing forth and what you're available to see. If you don't like what it is that you see, or if you are unsatisfied, which is totally fine, if you're unsatisfied with what you see, You don't go out into the world and change it then in physical form. You have to stop and change it mentally first. Otherwise, you're expending a lot of energy making temporary patchwork things happen rather than creating fundamental foundations.
Wow, that was good.
Thanks. Thanks.
How do you ask questions about your life without overthinking what's wrong or right for your life's direction? More than intuition or inner knowing, if possible.
Read that one more time.
How do you ask questions about your life without overthinking what's wrong or right for your life's direction?
Overthinking. Overthinking is an interesting thing because there is a paralysis of analysis. I think the first step is to be curious about your life, curious about your triggers, curious about why you react the way that you react, curious as to what makes you angry. Because being curious then opens up a space of willingness for enthusiastic examination. Now, enthusiastic examination doesn't necessarily mean that you have to subscribe to the story and lock into the story, but it means you're willing to look at the story up from past to present and begin to ask meaningful questions, and then be willing to change that story, to alter those things to the degree of your willingness. So you do have to look at past and present in order to reflect upon the story, but don't be so attached to it or identified with it in terms of that's who you are, but be more curious as to what are the beliefs and the triggers that have been established so that you can begin to work on those things.
How does the science of mind philosophy describe what occurs after death?
It doesn't outlay a specific patterning in terms of this portal opens, you go into it, there's your grandmother. Doesn't do any of that. What the science of mind philosophy or any metaphysical path does offer is the idea that the life, that the soul of the life of the soul is eternal. So this is but a blip on the cosmic spiraling up of our expression. So you'll often hear the phrase then that you are a spiritual being having a human experience. So this thing right now, which totally takes up the entirety of your thinking, this thing called your life, which you're fully wrapped up in, right? Consider for a moment that it is barely a blip on the cosmic journey of your soul. This is like a tiny fraction of your eternal journey. But what's significant about this particular blip is that to the degree of your availability, your unraveling, your recognition, and your evolution in consciousness, those things then don't stop with this particular incarnation. In other words, when you take your last breath as you now, all of the things that you have acquired in consciousness don't end there. That soul portion of you continues with that. That's what science of mind subscribes to. The learning doesn't stop with the identifying of who you are now, but the learning continues. So what's the impact then for you about that? Whatever I refuse to learn, or whatever I'm ignorant of learning, or whatever I don't allow myself to entertain and to explore, will continue to be a part of my process. Spiraling up. Good times. So.
Who do I pray to? Ooh. Got a ooh from the crowd.
So there is a distinction in prayer. So for those of us who were raised in other religions, Prayer was a form of communication to something outside of us. So the word praying to, T-O, praying to something, was the model by which we all learned. And that prayer then most likely was a beseeching prayer, an asking prayer. It was a bargaining prayer. You ever been in that bargaining table? Oh, God, if you'll just make this person love me. So lots of kinds of bargaining prayers, petitioning prayers. And so what one has to be amenable to with that is the dismantling of that kind of prayer. Because when we talk about the fact that God is all that there is, we're not talking about deity. We're talking about energy. We're talking about life, the essence of life, the essence of life that exists within a tree, the essence of life that exists within a baby, the essence of life that exists in all of nature. That essence of life is another term or an expression of God. It's all-encompassing. So that means I'm not praying to God. Then I have to consider then that what am I? I am a what? A part of, right? I'm not the totality of, but I am fully absorbed in that which is God. I, in my individualization, am not fully God in terms of that in and of itself, but I am totally absorbed in that. And so one of the ways to think about that is if I extract a droplet of water from the ocean, then everything that is in the ocean is where? In the drop. So everything that is the essence of life, the energy life, intelligence source God, that is equated to that. What are some of the things that are equated to God? Knowledge, wisdom, absolute love, beauty, harmony, abundance, divine order. All of those things are you as the drop. You have those things in you. They will only be activated to the degree that you are compliant and willing and agreeable to let them be activated. So in other words, if divine order is already within you, then it will only surface and it will only express to the degree that you don't block it. How would one block divine order? By fear or feeling unworthy or second guessing oneself or believing all of the things that you might have been told, in your adolescence about not being enough. That's a way in which you can block divine order. But the beautiful thing about evolving is that you then become aware of the illusion or the falsity of that, and you have the opportunity to do what? What's the one sentence that describes science of mind? Change your thinking, you change your life, right? And so one becomes more in harmony with that. So one of the revolutionary ways then to think about prayer in that form is you're not praying to God. You ready? You're praying as God. You're praying as the wisdom that is already within you. So your prayer then isn't an asking prayer. The prayer is a what kind of prayer? A declarative prayer. What does declarative mean? You're just creating statements of truth. That's what a spiritual mind treatment or our form of prayer is. They're declarative prayers or statements of truth, affirmations, okay? And so there are great examples of declarative prayers. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, is a declarative prayer. The scripture doesn't say, oh God, will you come and shepherd me because I need help. It's the Lord, which is synonymous with the law. The law then is my shepherd, I shall not want. Look at that. Look at that statement. It maketh me, if I'm in compliance with it, it maketh me lie down in green, verdant, beautiful pastures. It restoreth my soul. Those are all declarative statements. They're not asking or petitioning prayers. So when one begins to change then the relationship or the way in which you pray, you begin to practice then the way in which we pray in all New Thought philosophies, and that's declarative prayer. It always starts with, there's only one power, one presence, one absolute intelligence, one life force in this world, and we call that God. And I am a part of that. So there are steps. There's recognition and unification, and then affirmation or declaration. Then there's gratitude, and then there's release. When we say, and so it is, what is and so it is? It's done. It's a declarative, it's associated with the same Aramaic as amen, which and so it is. It is done. Now, because you have free will, once you say, and so it is, you have the ability to go back and pick up your worry and start the cycle all over again, right? But that's part of the training, you know, and so you have to start somewhere. So if you've never taken a class before, most of our classes are really structured around that practice of affirmative prayer, making that a part of your spiritual daily life. And as easy as it may sound, for those of us who were brought up differently, it really is a complete 180 in terms of prayer, right? And so if prayer is thought, and thought is energy, and energy is always being expressed, you are always praying anyway. So even the thought of I'm not good enough is a prayer. And it's a declarative prayer, right? And so whatever it is that we declare in prayer becomes that boomerang, that reciprocity, that energy because of cause and effect that just comes back to us. So when I look at my circumstances, I look at my surroundings, I'm not particularly happy with some things. What do? I don't try to go and attack those things. I don't even attack other people or make them responsible. I must go back to the origin of all things, which is thought, and learn how to then declare in my thought simply what is, the isness of that which is divine order. That's the practice then, you see, because, again, if I can't see it, that's my beautiful opportunity to declare that it's there. Isn't that what faith is? Isn't that how anything has come into fruition? When someone has an inspired vision to instrument and to bring into life, it starts with a vision. You have to have the prototype. You have to have the thought in mind. That's really what prayer is, our form of prayer.
Well, this is kind of similar. So I treat about an issue, yet in the pit of my stomach, I still feel nervous. Is treatment working? Should I treat again for the nervousness? How do I know when to stop praying?
Going to hell. No, that's normal. That's normal, you see, because why is that normal? Because what are you groomed and conditioned to? How you're groomed and conditioned to fear, to fear uncertainty, to fear change, to fear anything that is outside of the realm of what's familiar. We're conditioned. It's neither good nor bad, it's what it is. So again, if I'm wanting to change something and I create the treatment, the spiritual mind treatment is simply this. When you go for a treatment, where do you go? What are you getting? You're getting cared for, right? Spiritual mind treatment, I'm caring for my mind spiritually. In other words, I'm changing my thought from the realm of spirituality, not from the physical, but from the spiritual. So when I start to do that, if it's new to me, if I can't see the tangibility of it, if it's still a mystery or uncertain, then obviously my first go-arounds with this will be followed by, oh my God, is it going to work? So yes, I have just negated my spiritual mind treatment. And so then what do I have? Like this great question said, my opportunity then is to follow that up with yet another treatment about my fear or my uncertainty, which would sound something like this. God is truly all that there is. That presence, that life force is there whether I recognize it or not. It is seen and unseen. It is the very breath within me, whether I acknowledge or recognize it or not. And so I know that I am one with that, always. And I declare right here and now that all uncertainty is calmed, and that what I begin to see before me is the divine evidence of this order actively working within my life. I see it everywhere I go. I see it in ways expected and unexpected. I see it in language. I see it in communication and in hugs and in reading material and in audio. Everywhere that I turn, I am being reminded that I am held in the grace and the divinity of that which is divine order. And I give thanks for my willingness to be open and receptive to this change and to this clarity. And I know that as I give my thanks, I just put these words out into this beautiful thing called law, which absorbs my words. And then it brings my words back to me. And it is already done even before I speak it. And I let it go. And so it is. And so that then isn't really about the thing that I'm worried about, because actually what's ruling us more is what? Our uncertainty and our fear. The things, the specifics, are really just the effects of this all-pervasive thing called fear. And the more that I become accustomed to giving thanks and acknowledging that divine order is all around me, then the more that I will be able to see it. It's a practice. Just like Janet said again so beautifully, I can say, everything's in divine order when everything is appearing in divine order. On Thursday, when the dentist, after an hour and a half, couldn't get my upper molar out and said, I think they think you're out or something, like Novocaine is not going to take your hearing away. Then he goes, quick, go get me my pliers from when I was in graduate school in the 80s. And I'm going, I can hear you, but I'm like, yeah, I can hear you. And his knee is between my groin on the chair as he's going, wiggle, 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 wiggle. And I'm thinking, divine order is in place. Those are wonderful opportunities to practice. So yeah, I don't have a tooth.
How does one stay positive in the face of so much negativity?
Choose what you expose yourself to. You have a choice. You know, negativity, or that which we label negativity, can actually be a call to prayer. I've had many teachers in my life over the years say that when you watch something that is disturbing, look at that as an opportunity to practice your prayer. Or you have the ability to become very discerning and very particularized with regards to what you watch, see, expose yourself to. Know this, that if you participate at the level of effect, you will only inflame the situation. But if you always bring solution in, or if you let go the idea that you're going to change somebody, and so it isn't about changing anybody. It isn't about conversion. It isn't about pointing fingers right and wrong. It's about you becoming so sensitive and so aware of what feeds you that you continue to choose more of what feeds you instead of what starves you. And that's your choice. You realize you're at choice, right? Now, choosing those things which are positive doesn't mean that you remove yourself completely from our crazy humanity. But it means that you begin to build up spiritual muscle so that when you do encounter and go into these particular states of interaction, that, again, you do so with vision. You do so with clarity, not out of fear and provocation and trying to be right. What the world needs is more people who operate from vision rather than retaliation. And so an eye for an eye just makes the whole world blind. So look at why you feel you need to be right. And instead of feeding that, look at your opportunity to create, what is my vision and my value? And how can I bring more of that into a world that is hungry for that.
Since this philosophy is so powerful, why has it not become more widespread in the world?
Well, I think it is. It's just not necessarily constructed or managed or structured as a CSL, but this philosophy is everywhere. You even see it in Christian evangelists on television who are giving New Thought prosperity types of messages that are very much in alignment with how we believe. You see it in Oprah, and here she is now.
All right.
I mean, it really is everywhere, and so it doesn't have to be confined to our organization. I'm not a person who really subscribes to, oh my God, church growth. We got to grow the church. We got to grow the church. Church growth is an effect. Cause is that when you become so focused on creating an environment of learning and an environment of empowerment, an environment of inclusion, that which is growth is an automatic byproduct of that. To try to fix things at the realm of effect by, got to do this and do that, when really it's how do we serve, how do we empower and create a better up-leveling of what it is that we believe in, then those who need that will show up. The other thing, too, is this teaching is very different. So, in other words, we don't tell you you're going to hell if you don't come, so you don't have to come. But you are going to go to hell. No. There is no hell, right? And so there's nothing keeping you here. By not coming, you're not doing anything wrong. You can find your version of God anywhere. That's one of the great things that the millennial generation is teaching us, is that they're doing what it is that we're doing, but they're doing it out in the world. They're doing it in tangible ways. It's one of the reasons why we want to examine service, is to move beyond just walls, per se. And so that frightens some people. It empowers some people. But this teaching is being exemplified all the time, everywhere. When you're kind to somebody, you're using this teaching. And there's a lot of kindness in the world.
How do we stay in the flow?
Spiritual practice. By flow, I'm going to guess that you mean there's lots of fancy words for that. Abraham Hicks material uses the vortex. It's mysterious. Flow, to me, is just staying in the flow of recognition, the awareness, the self-awareness of your relationship and your valuable nature to the world. To stay in the flow, that divine order truly is there. And the only way that I know of, up until this point, until they invent a pill that does it for you, is spiritual practice. You have to have it. Well, you get to have a spiritual practice. You do. And you go, what is that? Practicing spiritually every single day. Something. Before, and I would highly recommend before you crawl, jump, stagger out of bed in the morning with the people you know or don't know, that you... that you pause and that you cultivate some kind of spiritual practice. Okay? So, and again, if you need coffee before you start your spiritual practice, the practice can wait. But there has to be something that you're committed to. Because you see, again, everything is intentional. If your spiritual practice is in your hierarchy of values, do you know what I mean by that? Your hierarchy of that means I wouldn't dare miss a day of this. If it becomes in your hierarchy of values, then everything that a spiritual practice benefits you or gives you will show up for you. The clarity that you're looking for, your relationship with your intuition is incredible, but you're not going to have that relationship if you don't have a spiritual practice. by intuition, I'm talking about you have your own internal guidance system that is telling you yes and no. But if you don't cultivate a relationship with that to be able to discern and to go, okay, got it. And if that's not there, then we will travel nilly-willy doing all kinds of things and hoping and keeping our fingers crossed. But spiritual practice brings us an assurance. It brings us a foundation. It brings us a constant recognition of that divine order. So before I even start my day, I've begun to design what that day is going to look like. You are a deliberate designer. You are an architect. You are the builder of everything that comes. And all of that, your instruments are then your thought and your practice of that thought.
What are we doing on time?
One more.
One more. And so it is versus and it is so.
One and the same.
You want to do another one?
Sure. You could even say boom shakalaka and it could still have the same thing. It's all in the intent. Happy trails.
How do you share spiritual truth and awakenings, wisdom, and so forth that have unfolded for you personally with those in your life without becoming preachy?
You have to discern whether they want to hear it or not. The best way to do that is to live it. In my early years when I was so incredibly privileged to work with Louise Hay and her first book came out, she gave me 20 copies. This is the book, You Can Heal Your Life, which is probably a lot of people's primer into their spiritual life. And I took those 20 copies and I went to all these people and I said, you need to read this. And not one of those people read that book. It's far more effective if you just live it, and then they will notice, and then they will come to you. Rather than approaching them, allow yourself to be the model, the prototype of what it is that you want them to know. Through your actions, through your manifestations, through the whole holistic model of the way in which you live your life. And trust me, if you do that, people will come up and ask you. And so it is.
So it is.
Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.